Okay, so if you have a revised paper and you have not already heard, put the revised paper and the original on that stack back there, and I'll pick them up on my way out. I am planning on either sometime today or tomorrow posting the topics for the final exam that will be due Monday, December 9th, I believe it is, at noon. I think I might have put the wrong day on the previous one. In my office, pet call 352 on the box of my door, or in my mail slot in the English department office, which is pet call 302B, I think. I'm planning on being here that morning to pick them up. Slight chance I might be having something done on one of my knees that morning, in which case I'll just come by a little bit later. But I won't be back on campus after that, so make sure it's there by then. All the instructions, all the directions will be spelled out clearly. Okay, and if you want to turn it, and I'll include this too, if you want to turn it in early, that would be fine as well. So we're picking up Tempest Act 1, Scene 2. And I don't remember where we left off, but I think I want to pick up around line 151. Okay, so Prospero is telling Miranda how they came to be on the island. You know, he used to be Duke of Milan, etc. And she says, you know, alack, what trouble was I then to you? That is, when I was a mere screaming, crying baby. And he says, oh, a cherubim. That is, no, you were a sweet little child. Thou wast that did preserve me. Thou didst smile, infused with fortitude from heaven, when I have decked the sea with drops full salt. That is, when I was full of tears, you kind of perked me up. Under my burden groan, which raised in me an undergoing stomach to bear up against what should ensue. That is, he kept going because of her. If he hadn't had Miranda, he would have died. Okay? How came we ashore? By providence divine. God's all-seeing eye, so to speak. Some food we had, and he talks about Gonzalo. Gonzalo, who prepared, the boat with food and water and some of his books, etc. And Miranda says, oh, I wish I could thank that man. Well, he says, hold on, you might. So he puts on his cloak and tells her, okay, we're about to finish this little lesson. Here on this island we arrived, here have I, thy schoolmaster, made thee more profit than other princes can, that have more time for vainer hours, and tutors not so careful. I have, he says, so profited your time here better than other tutors could have other princes or princesses back in Milan or Naples. She's had his sole attention. Okay? And she says, heavens, thank you for it. But why did you raise the storm? Remember, the whole conversation began because she saw a couple ships and she thought they were destroyed. He says, don't worry, I've raised the storm, the tempest. Now she gets back to that. So what's the purpose of the storm? Know thus far forth. That is, I will tell you so much. I'm not going to tell you everything. Not yet. By accident most strange, bountiful fortune, now my dear lady. Is the now my dear lady referring to Miranda? Or is that hearkening back to bountiful fortune? Because it almost sounds like he's saying fortune now serves him. Hath mine enemies brought to this shore. Okay, who are his enemies? The usurping brother and the king, who helped the brother usurp. And by my prescience, my pre-knowledge, my foreknowledge, I find my zenith doth depend upon a most auspicious star. Okay? And you've got a gloss down there, the zenith, the height of fortune. It is an astrological term. Auspicious star, okay, the astrological power of the star's influence. If now I court not but omit, my fortunes will ever after droop. In other words, to use a different metaphor, the iron is hot, it's time to strike. It's a blacksmithing metaphor. Iron is hot, it's on the anvil. You better hit it now, because once it cools, you can't shape it. He's saying fortune has so arranged things that he has the perfect opportunity to make good come out of the ill that abandoned him to that island. So, stop questioning. You're tired. And she falls to sleep. Why? He's put on his magical cloak. He's just put a spell on her. And enter Ariel. Well, Ariel's a spirit, all right? All hail, great master, grave sir, hail, I come to answer thy best pleasure, be it to fly, to swim, blah, blah, blah. So he says, did you do what I asked you to do with the tempest? To every article. That is, everything you asked, done perfectly. I boarded the king's ship. I was on the beak, I was on the waist, I was on the deck, and I did what? He caused amazement on the part of the sailors. Okay? Prospero, good. Who was so firm, so constant that this coil would not infect his reason? That is, was there anybody on the ship who wasn't amazed, who remained calm, who kept their sanity? Not a soul, but felt a fever of the mad and played some tricks of desperation. Okay? All but mariners plunged in the foaming brine and quit the vessel, then all afire with me. Notice, only the actual mariners, the men whose job it is to man the ship. Everybody else jumped overboard. The mariners stayed on boat. The king's son, Ferdinand, with hair upstaring, so hair standing on him, he was the first man that leaped and said, hell is empty and all the devils are here. So I'm going to, okay. But this was near the shore, right? Why does Prospero care whether or not it was near the shore?
Want to necessarily hurt them.
He doesn't want them to die. He doesn't want them to drown. So, I mean, when he jumped ship, he, hit the ground beneath the water, right? He says, yes, close by. Are they safe? Not a hair perished. That's another biblical allusion. Notice, Prospero says it was divine providence that led us here. Well, it's divine providence, according to Christ in the Gospels, that says God doesn't let a single hair on your head perish without his knowledge. Okay? So, on their sustaining garments, on their clothing, not a blemish. Now, I don't know about you. I've been to the beach a few times. Lived in California, 30 miles from the beach. My wife's from Florida. You go in the ocean fully clothed, and what happens to your clothes? At the very least, you get salt water in them. Usually what else? Sand, okay? There's blemish there. He says, not a blemish, not a mark, but fresher than before. So they come out of the water cleaner than when they went in. There's more religious imagery there. And we're going to hear Gonzalo kind of explicate it, let's say. And as thou badst me, in troops I have dispersed them, bout the isle. The king's son have I landed by himself, whom I left cooling of the air with sighs, etc., etc. Okay? So, Prospero says, what about the king's ships, the mariners, and the rest of the fleet? How are they? Safely in harbor, and the mariners are all sound asleep. Okay? For the rest of the fleet, which I dispersed, they've all met again. They're on the Mediterranean. They're bound back for Naples, so you don't need to worry about them. So there's one ship in the harbor, the king's ship, which is going to be important because they have to have a way to leave this island. So Prospero says, well done. What time is it? He tells him. And Ariel asks then, 2:43, is there more toil? More work? Notice what his question implies. I thought I was done. I thought this was it. Since thou dost give me pains, let me remember thee what thou hast promised. Since you give me work, that's what the pains means, let me remind you what you promised me, which is not yet performed me. Me there, it's objective. It means to me. Prospero. How now? Moody? Why does Prospero say that? What's he saying to Ariel? Who do you think you are? What is it thou canst demand? My liberty. Notice, Ariel is a slave, right? He's essentially, he's bound to Prospero. Is Ariel's case that much different than Prospero's case? Prospero, in a sense, is bound also. He's bound to what? Louder?
The island.
The island. Prospero has done to Ariel what Prospero's brother has done to Prospero. Okay. Before the time be out, no more. I promised at a certain time. I pray thee, remember, I have done thee worthy service, told thee no lies, made thee no mistaking, served without grudge or grumblings. Thou didst promise to bate me a full year. Ye said 1 year. Do you remember what torment I freed thee from? No. Excuse me, dost thou forget? No, that is, I remember it very well. Thou dost, that is, no, you do forget. So Prospero says, so I'm going to tell you. Why? Because we, the audience, don't know what. This is Shakespeare's way of, I think, kind of drawing out the play. Why would he need to draw out the play? Well, if what Prospero says at the end about, I'm done, and here I abjure this rough magic, and he breaks his wand, indicating he's done with his magic, and we can read that metaphorically as Shakespeare saying, I'm spent. I've written all I can write. This could be Shakespeare's, frankly, his way of padding, of getting 5 acts out. I'm not saying that it necessarily is. I'm just saying it's a possible explanation. Because how much does it really add to our understanding of the play overall to hear what we're told about Ariel being trapped in a pine tree? It doesn't significantly affect the play, okay? So he talks about, the foul witch Sycorax did this to you. Have you forgotten her? No, you have. So he then goes on. Because Ariel keeps saying, I haven't forgotten, I remember. Okay? So she was banished to this island, pregnant with child. She took over the island, beginning line 271 and following. Okay? And by help of her more potent ministers and in her most unmitigable rage, into a cloven pine within which rift imprisoned thou didst painfully remain 12 years. So when I got here, you had been in that pine for 12 years, and I freed you. Remember? Okay, and Ariel does. And he goes on and talks about her son. Prospero does, 284. Save for the son that she did litter here, a freckled whelp, hag-born, not honored with the human shape. Does that mean Caliban is not human? Sycorax was a witch. Witches are what? They're human. Okay? But Caliban, we're told, is hag-born and not honored with a human shape. Ariel, yes, Caliban, her son. Look at the word Caliban and rearrange the letters. by sound at least. And you get what? Cannibal. Cannibal. Okay. So Prospero talks about Caliban. He that Caliban, whom now I keep in service, thou best knowest. What torment I did to find thee in, thy groans did make wolves howl, etc., etc. He finishes in Ariel. I thank thee, master. Thank you for releasing me. So if thou more murmurest, I will rend an oak and stick you in it. So no more complaints. Pardon, master, I will be correspondent to command and do my spriting gently. Whatever you command, I'll do it. Do so, and after 2 days, I will discharge thee. 2 more days of service, and then you're free. Okay? So, tells him what to do, and Prospero wakes up Miranda. And notice when she wakes up, it's like she hasn't even been asleep. She's talking like the conversation never ended. The strangeness of your tale put heaviness in me. That is, it kind of made me tired. Shake it off. Come on, we'll visit Caliban, my slave, who never yields us kind answer. Okay? Miranda, he's a villain. I do not love to look on. He's foul in appearance. Prospero. But as 'tis, we cannot miss him. Why not? 3:14. Do without. Why can't they do without Caliban? He makes our fire. He fetches in our wood. He serves in offices that profit us, that benefit us. In other words, Caliban does what kind of work? Manual labor.
Slave.
Servant. Slave. A lot of readers over the last 30 years, 40 years, since it became a big thing, really want to read this play entirely through the lens of post-colonialism. That, Prospero's the nasty imperial colonialist, and Caliban is the poor native, poor indigenous person who is being colonized and such. We'll talk about that maybe as we go on. So, what ho? Slave. He just said slave. Then we hear Caliban. Okay, Prospero calls him forth. Okay, and he says, 3:22, thou poisonous slave, got by the devil himself upon thy wicked dam, come forth. So he is saying Caliban is half devil, half human. Not literally. Okay? Caliban comes in. As wicked dew as ere my mother brushed with a raven's feather from unwholesome fin, drop on you both. The southwest blow on ye and blister ye all over. Notice his first words really to Prospero and Miranda that we see are a curse. Okay? Well, Miranda's going to say something in just a few minutes about how she taught him speech, and he says, yeah, and it made me what? Able to curse. Okay? So Prospero says, tonight you're going to have cramps because of that. Side stitches shall pin thy breath up. Urchin shall Caliban. I must eat my dinner. In other words, shut up and leave me alone. This island's mine by Sycorax, my mother. It belongs to me. You've taken it. Ah. He's saying Prospero's what? A usurper. Like Prospero's younger brother. When thou camest first, thou strokest me and made much of me, which give me water with berries in it. Teach me how to name the bigger light and how the less. The sun, the moon, that burn by day and night. Notice, he didn't know what they were called. They were just what? Bigger light, the smaller light. And then I loved thee, and showed thee all the qualities of the isle, the fresh springs, the brine pits, salt pits, barren place and fertile. Cursed be that I did so. All the charms of sycorax, toads, beetles, bats, light on you. For I am all the subjects I'm the only one that you control. Is Caliban not aware of Ariel? He doesn't see Ariel. Which first was mine own king. Own king how? Before you came, Caliban says, I was king. King of what? Himself. I was my own subject. What is it that Ariel wants? Liberty. Wants to be king of self. Okay? So Caliban says, I was mine own king. What does Hamlet tell us? I could be a king of infinite space, bound up in a nutshell, were it not for dreams. So there's this idea that kicks around in Shakespeare. And here you sty me in this hard rock that is in a cave. You house me in this cave, whilst you do keep from me the rest of the island. He's saying, before you came, all the island was mine. Now I get this little cave. Thou most lying slave, whom stripes may move, not kindness. Why stripes? Beatings. What's he mean by move? Influence. Chide. Persuade. I tried being kind to you. Didn't work. Tell a child, we can do this two ways. We can do it the easy way. We can do it the hard way. Easy way is you do what I say. Hard way is I spank you for not doing what I say. And whom stripes may move, not kindness. I have used thee, filth as thou art. Okay, leave the filth with as thou art aside for a moment. I have used thee what? With humane care. What does humane mean? To treat somebody humanely, to treat an animal humanely. Doesn't mean to treat it like an animal. It means to treat it with care, to treat it with compassion. So, I used thee with humane care and lodged thee in mine own cell. Now, notice we're kind of getting a little backstory here. Okay? Caliban says, you lodged me in this cave. Prospero says, well, at the first, I lodged you in my own cave, with me and my daughter, till thou did seek to violate the honor of my child, until you tried to rape her. Okay. They came when Miranda was how old? 3. They've been there 12 years. She's now 15. When did he try to do that? Because it's implied he's been in the cave for a while. So I don't think it was when she was 14. 8, 9, 10. Kind of opens our eyes a little bit about Caliban. Oh, would it had been done. Damn, you stopped me. Thou didst prevent me. I had peopled else this isle with Calibans. And if you hadn't stopped me, there'd be a bunch of little me's running all around. So Caliban's kind of telling us, and it wouldn't have been once. Abhorred slave, which any print of goodness wilt not take. Any print, any impression, like impressing a seal on wax. What's the purpose of that? It's so that you can take the seal and show it to somebody and say, look, I have this seal, this insignia of this individual. Okay? We saw the same language, first play that we did this semester, Midsummer Night's Dream. What did You are, he says, the imprint of your father. You should do as your father says. Okay? Which goodness wilt not take, being capable of all ill, all sin, all evil. Okay? Now, this is religious language. Why so? What is Prospero saying about Caliban? Notice, goodness can't be imprinted, can't be forced on him. It can't come from outside, in other words. It's got to come from where? It's got to come from within. Okay? Though we are going to hear later on talk about grace. Grace comes from outside. Okay? So what does Caliban have within? All ill. Why? Because he's capable of it. He can do that without any help from outside. That capable of all ill, that's the idea of fallen Adam, fallen man. What's called post-lapsarian man. I pitied thee. This is Miranda speaking. I pitied thee, took pains to make thee speak. Took pains. I labored to teach you language. So, before they arrived, what did Caliban do when he walked around the island? He's like the Tasmanian devil. He didn't speak language, or he didn't speak their language. He spoke possibly a language, but not a language Miranda understood. Taught thee each hour one thing or other, meaning each hour of the day I was teaching you. When thou didst not, savage, know thine own meaning, but wouldst gabble like a thing most brutish, that is, when you didn't know what you thought. And Shakespeare's raising a pretty important idea here. If you don't have language, can you think? How do you think? Not what do you think? How do you think? You think with words, right? Or do you think with images, ideas? It's a really, really important question. If we think in thoughts, those thoughts are made of words. How does a baby think? Because a baby can't speak. A baby thinks, sees just images. But what happens as the baby acquires language? Well, those things start to get what? Categories. And the mind becomes like a giant pigeonhole. And you start sorting things. You start getting that ability to distinguish between one thing from another. She is saying, I taught you that ability so that what you didn't understand up here, know thine own meaning, but wouldst gabble like a thing most brutish, I endowed thy purposes with words that made them known. I gave you the ability to use words so that you could then do what? Say, I, whatever. I want, I need, I like, I love, but thy vile race. Race meaning genus. Your vile, your lowly origin. And this is where, post-colonials, they just really, go the whole 9 yards on this one. Though thou didst learn, had that in it which good natures could not abide to be with. There was something or is something in you that people of goodwill, of good natures, okay, good origins, like we Milanese, we Neapolitans, we couldn't be with you. Therefore wast thou deservedly confined into this rock, who had deserved more than a prison. Now she's kind of saying there, but my father let you out of this rock every now and then. She's kind of implying you ought to be confined to this rock and the rock put up against it. See, Miranda comes across a little bit harsher than Prospero does. Of course, I imagine if he tried to rape me, I'd probably be a little harsher on him too than Dad would. You taught me language, he says, and my profit on it is I know how to curse. I can swear because of you. What's he saying language has done for him? Nada. Why? Still a slave. Still a servant. The red plague rid you for learning me. Your language. Okay. So Prospero, threatens him. Says, I'm going to give you all kinds of pains. And Caliban, no, pray thee. And then he says, an aside. So only the audience hears this. I must obey. His art is of such power it would control my damned god, Setebos, my mother's god, and make a vassal of him. He's telling us something here. Prospero is really powerful. As a magician, he's very, very powerful. Okay? So, he kicks Caliban out. Ariel comes in, sings a nice little song. And we see Ferdinand, because Ferdinand comes in through one of the doors. Notice Ferdinand hears Ariel singing. It's like, well, what is this place? Some god of the island. Sitting on a bank, weeping again. The king, my father's rank, this music crept by me upon the waters, allaying both the fury and my passion with its sweet air. Thence I followed it. So, he made his way to shore. He sat on a bank. He mourned his father's passing, he thinks. And he hears the music, kind of like in Young Frankenstein. He follows the violin, okay? Which leads him here. He hears Ariel sing, full fathom 5, thy father lies, of his bones are coral made. Those are pearls that were his eyes, nothing of him that doth fade, but doth suffer a sea change into something rich and strange. Okay. Look at that again. Full fathom 5. Fully 5 fathoms deep. Your father what? Lies in the ocean. Of his bones, coral is now made. His eyes turn into pearls. Nothing of him that doth fade, but doth suffer a sea change. That is, he's not just wasting away. What's happening to him? He's being changed into something else. We have the phrase, a sea change. What's it mean? A total transformation. Well, we're going to see a total transformation of his father. A total transformation from this to a new Adam. Okay? It takes a while, but it happens because of Prospero's art. But to suffer a sea change into something rich and strange, something he wasn't before. Now, literally, the sea change we're being seen described as what? He's being changed into something of the ocean. Metaphorically, it's a death because he goes down into water. It's a baptism. He goes down into water, dies, and he comes back up because Ferdinand's going to see him again. And he's going to be transformed. Ferdinand, the ditty does remember my drowned father. This is no mortal business, nor no sound that the earth owes. I hear it now above me. This isn't immortal singing. This is something above me. Well, within his worldview, what could that only be? Because he's from Naples. It's got to be either be a god or an angelic being. Something supranatural, above nature. Prospero says to Miranda, the fringed curtains of thine eye advance, and say, what thou seest yond. It's like Miranda's, looking off over here. There's a pretty cloud over there. And he goes, Miranda, look this way. Look over there. Tell me, what do you see? She's been alone on the island with her father, Caliban, and the spirits. What is it? A spirit? Lord, how it looks about. Because Ferdinand's hearing the song, and he's kind of turning around. Believe me, sir, it carries a brave form, but 'tis a spirit. She thinks it's not real. Real, having substantiality. Prospero. No, wench. Just means daughter. It doesn't mean, we think it means. It eats and sleeps and hath such senses as we have. It's like us. This gallant, which thou seest, was in the wreck. But he's something stained with grief. That's beauty's canker. Thou mightst call him a goodly person. He hath lost his fellows and strays about to find him. So he tells her, no, he was one of those in the shipwreck, and, he's full of grief, and he's looking for them. I might call him a thing divine. He's hot. For nothing natural I ever saw so noble. Sorry, Dad. Because Prospero, he should have a long beard and be kind of wrinkled. So her father and Caliban, those are the only two men she's seen. And now she sees, take your actor, Chris Hemsworth. Prospero. It's an aside. It's to us, the audience. And notice it betrays everything about his purpose. It goes on. I see. In other words, yes. Just as I thought. She will be struck by him. Okay? As my soul prompts it. He wants this to happen. Okay? So he says to Ariel, spirit, fine spirit, I'll free thee into it. In other words, well done, Ariel. This good job. Ferdinand sees Miranda, most sure the goddess on whom these airs attend. So she called him a thing divine. He calls her a goddess. And these airs, these musical voices, they must attend her. So he addresses her. Vouchsafe my prayer may know if you remain upon this island, and that you will some good instruction give, how I may bear me here. That is, how I can live here. My prime request, which I do pronounce, is, are you a woman or no? Are you a woman or are you a goddess? Because if you're a goddess, I understand you're out of my league. But if you're a woman, man. And let's see here. Miranda, certainly a maid. Oh, she speaks my language. Surprising. Heavens, I am the best of them that speak the speech, were I but... Okay, stop. Family's texting. Were I the best of them that speak the speech, were I but where 'tis spoken. Prospero. How the best? That is, well, how are you the best who speak that language? Notice Prospero speaks the same language too. What's he doing here? One of Shakespeare's favorite themes. He's a father getting in front of his daughter and her future lover. He's going to complicate things. And he's going to do it very, very quickly so that Miranda's going, Dad, shut up. Get behind me, A single thing as I am now that wonders to hear thee speak of Naples, he does hear me, and that he does I weep. Myself am Naples. When he says I am Naples, that's like Hamlet saying I am Denmark. Okay? Why does he say I am Naples? Because he thinks his father the Duke is dead. Oh, it's father the king, sorry. Miranda, oh mercy. Okay. Yes, faith and all his lords, the Duke of Milan and his brave son being twain. Prospero, the Duke of Milan, and his more braver daughter could control thee, if now 'twere fit to do it. Because the Duke of Milan and his brave daughter, that is Prospero and Miranda. What Ferdinand is saying is, I don't recognize you at all. So, he again thanks Ariel. A word, good sir, he addresses Ferdinand. I fear you have done yourself some wrong. A word. Why speaks my father so ungently? We're getting something here. This is the third man that e'er I saw, the first that e'er I sighed for. She just looks at him and pity moved my father to be inclined my way. What does Hermia say to her father or to the Duke? Twould my father look with my eyes. Because then what? Then he would look at Lysander. Okay? Ferdinand. Notice he doesn't address Prospero. Prospero is the one who has addressed him last. He addresses Miranda. Oh, if a virgin and your affection not gone forth, I'll make you the Queen of Naples. So, one, if you're still a virgin, you haven't been sleeping around with somebody. Notice how Caliban could have put the kibosh on that earlier. Okay. And two, if you're not already spoken for, if you're not already involved with somebody, I'll marry you. In like the 10th word, he's spoken to her. Talk about moving fast. Prospero. One word more. Whoa. Time out. Father has a say here. And then he speaks to the audience again. They are both in either's powers. She has done what to him? We can even play with her name. Mirandized. Not in the sense of the Miranda ruling, Supreme Court. She has taken him under her spell so that he is now in a state of admiration. Okay? Meanwhile, she looks at him and goes, oh, that's a man. But this swift business I must uneasy make. Why? Notice, swift business. They're ready to sign on the dotted line right at this point. Lest too light winning make the prize light. The old game, what's called the old dance. The dance of male and female and the courtship ritual. Where you have to play the part, so to speak. He's saying, I got to slow it down. Why? So that if Ferdinand wins his goal, my daughter, he doesn't take it too lately. And if Miranda wins her goal, Ferdinand, she doesn't take it too lightly. There's got to be some blood, sweat, and tears involved in the, so to speak, battle. Okay? One word more, I charge thee, attend me. Thou dost here usurp the name thou owest not, and hast put thyself upon this island as a spy, to win it from me, the Lord, on it. I don't trust you, you're here as a spy. You want to take it from me. Where'd that come from? Literally out of thin air. No, as I am a man. Miranda, nothing ill can dwell in such a temple. He's perfect. Notice what that, by the way, the ideology that betrays. It's very Platonic. Plato essentially said, if you're beautiful on the outside, you're beautiful on the inside. And if you're ugly on the outside, you're ugly on the inside. Today we call that shallow. But look at Caliban. Ugly on the outside, ugly on the inside. It's part of Shakespeare's appearance versus reality theme that he does in so many of his works. So, there's nothing ill can dwell in such a temple. If the ill spirit have so fair a house, good things will strive to dwell within it. So, if that house, that body, has an ill spirit in it, good things will do what? They will strive to dwell inside with it. Come with me. No, you don't speak to him. He's a traitor. Come. I'll manacle thy feet and neck together. So he's going to put manacles on his feet. The manacles are going to go up to his neck to keep him from running, to keep him from going far. He says, I'm going to put you to work. He says, I will resist such entertainment till mine enemy has more power. And he draws, that is, he pulls a sword out, but he can't move. Miranda, oh dear father, make not too rash a trial of him. It's almost like she knows what her father's doing. Don't make too rash a test. Don't dissuade him. I mean, test him a little bit. Make sure he's good. He's gentle, not fearful. What I say, my foot, my tutor, that is, am I going to listen to my foot? He's calling his daughter there, his foot. Put thy sword up, traitor, who makes the show, but darest not strike. Thy conscience is so possessed with guilt. Come from thy ward, for I can here disarm thee with this stick. And he brandishes his staff. Miranda tries to stop him. He says, get off me. Okay. One word more shall make me chide thee. You kind of get the impression that he hasn't had to chide his daughter much. Well, why not?
It's hard to get into trouble on an island.
Hard to get in trouble in an island where it's only you and Dad and Caliban. It's not like she's, tempted to go off behind the trees with Caliban, An advocate for an imposture. Thou thinkst there is no more such shapes as he, having seen but him and Caliban. You think he's the only man in the world. Foolish wench. To the most of men, this, Ferdinand, is a Caliban. Okay? If you were in the real world, if you were back in Naples, you would look at Ferdinand as you look at Caliban. So take Chris Hemsworth and think 10 times better. Right? For most of you. They to him are angels. Then my affections are most humble. In other words, then I'm fine with Caliban. This one, I have no ambition to see a goodlier man. Come on, boy. Okay? So he goes off with them. And Miranda says to Ferdinand, be of comfort, line 499. My father's of a better nature, sir, than he appears by speech. He doesn't usually act like this. I don't know what's gotten into him. This is unwanted, which now came from him, because she doesn't understand what he's doing. Act 2. Gonzalo and the others come in. Now, we've heard Gonzalo referred to before. Who is he?
He's the person that helped them.
He's the old man, the old servant, who helped them by putting food and water in the boat and bringing Prospero his books. Okay? And he says to Alonso, the king, beseech you, sir, be merry. He channels his inner Bobby McFerrin. Don't really be happy. Sing the song. Why? You have cause, so have we all, of joy, for our escape is much beyond our loss. Well, what have they lost? Their ship, they think. Any men? Nope. Our hint of woe is common. Our hint of woe is common. What's the hint of woe? Hamlet. Hamlet, first big scene where Hamlet's there with the king and queen, and what does the king go on about? Come on, Hamlet, you know fathers die. Your father's father died. His father's father. It's common. It's the natural course of things. That's what he's talking about. Our hint of woe is common. How so? Every day some sailor's wife, the masters of some merchant, and the merchant have just our theme of woe. Their ships go down. That is, the sailor's wife, she goes off to the headland. She expects her husband's ship to come back. It doesn't. But for the miracle, I mean our preservation, few in millions can speak like us. Notice, our lives are now a miracle. We should have died. Then wisely, good sir, weigh our sorrow with our comfort. Is he saying, Wade, they're equal? No. Because our sorrow should have been, we should have died. Our comfort is, we're alive. It outweighs the sorrow. Alonzo, pretty peace. Shut up. Why? Who's not with him? Ferdinand. Sebastian, he receives comfort like cold porridge. I don't know if you've ever eaten cold oatmeal. Ugh, not very good. Okay. Antonio, the visitor will not give him over, so look, he's winding up the watch of his wit, etc., etc. Gonzalo. We're going to skip a lot of what Antonio and Sebastian say. Gonzalo, line 18. When every grief is entertained that's offered, comes to the entertainer, and he gets cut off. Notice Sebastian says $1, and Gonzalo says dolor. Dollar is a form of money. It's not the American form of money, but it was another one then. Dolor, sadness, sorrow. So, when every grief is entertained, that's offered. When every little problem you totally allow inside and you entertain it, you feed it, you give it food and drink, you nourish it, then what happens? Then sorrow really does come. Indeed. That's what Gonzalo is saying. You have spoken truer than you purpose, he says to Sebastian. Sebastian, you have taken it wiselier than I meant you should. That is, and you've taken the single word I said, and you've turned it into what I did not intend. Okay? So Sebastian, Gonzalo, and Antonio go back and forth, and we're going to skip a lot of it, and pick up with 52. Gonzalo says, here is everything advantageous to life. Here meaning, here where we are on this island. And what does he mean by that? Probably, look, there's a spring, water. One of the necessities of life. Oh, look, there are trees with fruit. There's food. So we have food, we have water. It's an island in the Mediterranean. We don't have to worry about shelter a whole lot. Antonio, true, save means to live. What does he mean by means? Louder?
Reason or purpose.
Reason or purpose? Okay. How lush and lusty the grass looks. How green. Okay, so is Gonzalo suggesting we become like cows, cattle, and eat the grass? No. He's suggesting how alive it is. It's like it looks greener than regular grass does. Okay. The rarity of it, which is indeed almost beyond credit. Credit meaning belief. I can't believe how green this is. Here's what he says is the rarity, the really amazing thing. Line 64. Our garments being as they were drenched in the sea, right? Because they jumped out of the boat into the water. Hold notwithstanding their freshness and glosses. being rather new dyed than stained with salt water. You would think they'd come out of the water, okay, and they're Italians. So what kind of clothes are they wearing? These are rich, very, very rich fabric. They've come out of the water, soaking wet, and let's say they've been on the island now for a couple of hours, and it's dried. Well, what should you see element of, the trace of, in that rich clothing, especially if it's dark clothing, like red or purple or blue? You see white stains, right, from the salt. He says it's like these are newly made, newly cleaned, rather than stained with salt water. There's that kind of baptismal imagery again. Antonio, if but one of his pockets could speak, would it not say he lies? That is, if he were to stick his hand in his pocket, he'd probably find what? Jump into the ocean with shorts that have loose pockets, and 9 times out of 10, what are you going to find in those pockets when you come back out? Sand. Okay? Antonio's trying to say he's making this up. Gonzalo, 71. Methinks our garments are now as fresh as when we put them on first in Africa, that is, in Africa. Why were they in Africa? Because the king married off his daughter to the king of Tunisia. At the marriage of the king's fair daughter Claribel to the king of Tunis. Okay? So they go back and forth. And Gonzalo says to Alonso, to the king, line 98, Sir, we were talking that our garments seem now as fresh as when we were at Tunis at the marriage of your daughter, who is now queen. Okay? Alonso probably doesn't want to hear about that either. Why? Son's dead, he thinks, and daughter might as well be dead. He's on a deserted island, and she's now married to the king of Tunis. Is it not, sir, my doublet as fresh as the first day I wore it? He kind of asks, Alonso, come here. Feel this thing. It feels brand new. How can this be? We just came out of the ocean. He doesn't understand it. Well, how is it that way? It's part of Prospero's magic. Well, actually, it's part of Ariel's magic. Controlled by Prospero. Okay? So Alonso says, 108, you cram these words into mine ears against the stomach of my sense. The stomach of my sense means you're speaking these words and they're coming into my ears, but his reason doesn't want to hear anything. Why? Because he's suffering from his passions. And his passions are telling him what? My son is dead. Would I had never married my daughter there. Why? Because if we hadn't married my daughter to the king of Tunis, we wouldn't have been on the boat in the first place. And we wouldn't have been on the Mediterranean when the tempest came, and I never would have lost Ferdinand. For coming hence, my son is lost, and in my rate, she too, that is, in my estimation, she too, who is so far from Italy removed, I never again shall see her. He's kind of implying, even if I get back to my own kingdom, to Naples, I'll never see Claribel again. Why? Because you got to go all the way across the Mediterranean. O thou mine heir of Naples and of Milan, with strange fish hath made his meal on thee. I don't know if that's supposed to be an echo of Jonah or if it's just, the sharks eating him down at the bottom. Francisco, he may live. Why? I saw him beat the surges under him and ride upon their backs. I saw him on the surface of the water. So what's Francisco doing for Alonso? He's giving him hope. His bald head both above, the contentious waves he kept, and oared himself with his good arms and lusty stroke to the shore. I do not doubt he came alive to land. No, he's gone. Okay, what did Gonzalo say earlier about when every grief is entertained that's offered? He lets this one little thought, Ferdinand's dead, totally take over his mind, even though Francisco has given him good reason to believe he's still alive. So if you really thought he was still alive, what should Alonso do? Send out a search party. Antonio, Sebastian, you go this way. Gonzalo, Francisco, you go this way, etc. But he doesn't. So, no, he's gone. And Sebastian, who is, I always forget, brother to Alonso? Yes, brother to Alonso does what? That dirty, rotten bastard. He says, Sir, you may thank yourself for this great loss that would not bless our Europe with your daughter, but rather loose her to an African. So you can imagine the post-colonial theorists, the way they look at this. He's saying, it's your fault Ferdinand's dead. Why? Because you married your daughter. Let's go all racial. A good white European to an African. You mixed the bloods. Shouldn't have gone there. Where she at least is banished from your eye, who hath cause to wet the grief on it. So what has he just done? And what's it designed to do? What is Sebastian wanting to do? Well, there's that wound, and he just gets salt, grinds it in. He wants to make Alonso even worse off than he already is. Peace, stop. You were kneeled to and importuned otherwise by all of us. Kneeled to. We got down on our knees and we begged you, don't marry Claribel to the King of Tunis. Surely there's somebody in Europe you could have married her off to. And the fair soul herself weighed between loathness and obedience, at which end of the beam should bow. And your daughter didn't want to marry him either. She only did out of what? Obedience. She's the good daughter. We have lost your son, I fear, forever. There's more salt. Milan and Naples have more widows in them of this business making than we bring men to comfort them. He's suggesting, and all the mariners are dead. We're the only ones of the entire fleet that are left alive. He thinks the whole fleet has gone down. And it's all your fault. Now that's a real pick-me-upper, right? The fault's your own, Alonso. So is the dearest of the loss. That is, and you don't feel my loss either. Gonzalo. Sebastian, come here. My lord Sebastian, the truth you speak doth lack some gentleness, and time to speak it in. Notice, he doesn't say Sebastian is wrong. He says, the truth you speak. Yeah, you're right. But what should you do at this time? At this time? Told you so. Not the time. Give it a few weeks, You rub the sore when you should bring the plaster, the salve, the comfort. All right? So, Gonzalo seemingly looks around the island, and he thinks what? Well, we're the only ones here. Had I plantation of this isle, okay, you can understand why, this really can lend to a post-colonial kind of language. Had I plantation of this isle, and were the king on it, so if Alonso weren't here, what would I do? And so he kind of imagines, if I were to set up my kingdom here, what would it be like? In the commonwealth, I would by contraries execute all things. Notice it wouldn't be a kingdom. He says it would be a commonwealth. It's important to understand this word and its context. Okay? Go back about 60 years before the play is written. In the early 1560s, see, this is 1612. Yeah, go back to the 1550s. Okay? And there was a huge uprising that began in the north of England among peasants at first, but it began to spread. And in fact, they took over a part of Norfolk. Okay, kicked all the nobility out, and they set up a commonwealth. What's commonwealth mean? Like the Commonwealth of Virginia. Tennessee is not a commonwealth. It's a state. Virginia is a state, but it calls itself the Commonwealth of Virginia. Well, put a line between those two words. It's the commonwealth. It's the wealth held in common. That is the land, the property, the money, etc. Well, back in the 1550s, there was this idea among radicals, they were called radicals, that they needed to get rid of the aristocracy. So get rid of dukes, get rid of lords, get rid of ladies, get rid of royalty, and let's have everybody hold the land in common. So that, let's say this room is all the land, and let's say I'm the king. Well, what would that presume? That would presume all the land from here over there is mine. This is you guys. And let's say Caleb's a duke. Okay? And Bjorn is a duke. And Mary's a duchess or something. And you guys own. So the rest of you are nobody. You're peons. This is yours. And I've got all this. And the others have all that. And you work this partly for yourself, but partly for your landowner, your landlord. That's where we get the term from. Well, after a while of doing that, like several hundred years, and your family are poor, you start to see this idea develop that, well, that ain't right. I want some of that. Okay? And so these folks set up this commonwealth. All right? And it starts to spread. Word spreads, and people start to set them, these little commonwealths, communes kind of, up in other parts of the country. Well, the king at the time, because it's before Elizabeth, is King Edward VI, who's just a boy. He's not really king. He has a Lord Protector standing behind him, flexing his muscles. And the Lord Protector, lets this go for a little while, and he agrees to some demands, briefly, in very small fashion, but then he unleashes the dogs of war. And he has these little areas beaten down and destroyed. And you know what happens to the leaders of those uprisings? Their heads get lopped off and they get taken down and put on London Bridge as a warning. Or the entrance gate to the towns that they took over. And finally, they march on the big area in Norfolk. And he promises initially, we'll exceed your demands, etc. But then he just slaughters them. Okay? So this term commonwealth, it's said within that context. So everybody understands, commonwealth, what kind of idea is that? It's heresy. In good American capitalism, it's communist. It's collectivist. It's taking away from the rich, from those who have, and giving to everybody else. Okay? So he says, in the commonwealth, I would by contraries execute all things. For no kind of traffic would I admit. And your gloss tells you what do you mean by traffic? Trade. Trade. Buying and selling. No name of magistrate, that is, no judges. Letters should not be known. 153, learning, education. Riches, poverty, use of service. What is this? This is John Lennon's Imagine. No borders, everybody equal, etc., etc. There would be no contract, no succession, no bourne, no bound of land, no tilt, no vineyard, none. Everybody would inherit and rule and till and work the land equally. No use of metal, corn, wine, or oil, no occupation, all men idle, and women too. That is, no, it's not going to be the men sitting there and the women do all. No. Everyone would be idle, innocent, and pure. Well, what's he talking about? A golden age, right? A golden age that never existed, unless you want to go back to what's already been referred to, Adam in paradise. What did God say? You can eat of any tree you want. What does that imply? These trees are already producing. He doesn't have to do anything. He just picks and eats. Okay? Sebastian, yet you would be king on it. Notice how Sebastian just points through the fallow. So everything held in common, and you're going to be king. How's that work? Antonio, the latter end of his commonwealth forgets the beginning. That is, how do you get to the commonwealth if you've got a king at the beginning? Gonzalo, all things in common, nature should produce without sweat or endeavor. Nature would do this. I shouldn't go there. I'm going to. It's like the Green New Deal. Sorry, there's a big pun. The Green New Deal. The Green New Deal. Which is what? We're going to raise taxes. We're going to do all this kind of stuff, and everybody's going to be happy. All the buildings will be rebuilt, so they're totally sustainable, blah, 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 blah. Okay? All things in common nature should produce without sweat or endeavor. Treason, felony, sword, pike. The pike's important because that's what they put the heads on. Knife, gun, need of any engine, would I not have? Why? Because why do you need treason and felony? Those are laws, right? Those are legal terms. Why do you not need sword, pike, knife, gun, or any engine? Why does every totalitarian government deny its citizens the rights to defend themselves? It stops revolt dead in its tracks. As soon as one person can raise a gun, any kind of gun. So, there won't be any need for this, he's suggesting. But nature should bring forth of its own kind all foison, all abundance, to feed my innocent people. Sebastian, so there's not going to be any marrying either, huh? None, man, all idle. They'll all be whores and knaves. I would, with such perfection govern, sir, to excel the golden age. Well, who's Gonzalo saying he would really ultimately be? God. In this golden age. Well, almost 100 years before this play is written, Sir Thomas More writes a little book, 1521, 1525, something like that, titled, anybody? Utopia. And what does utopia mean? It has two meanings. One means beautiful place. The other one means no place. Because it's a beautiful place that does not exist. In fact, it's a beautiful place that cannot exist. Not with people as they are. Which is why Marx writes the Communist Manifesto. And the Communist Manifesto is about a utopia. What's the only way Marx's Communist Manifesto can be made to exist, which Lenin took and just ran with, Lenin and Stalin. Well, you have to have the bloody revolution. The bloody proletariat has to overthrow the producers. And how do you ultimately get at the true proletarian society? You kill all those who disagree. You kill all those who don't want to be part of that society. What's the ultimate problem with that? Who's left? Me. And that's it. Because even if I kill all of you, and it's just Caleb and I, what's going to happen at some point? Put a single toy with two children, two-year-olds, in a play yard. One toy. Two go in, one comes out. It's human nature. Okay? So, save His Majesty, long live Gonzalo. And Gonzalo's like, mark me, sir, etc. Okay? So, the others all start to fall asleep. 10:58. The others all start to fall asleep, and Sebastian and Antonio are the only two that stay awake. So why do the others fall asleep and these two stay awake? Ariel, under Prospero's command. And what do we see Antonio and Sebastian plot? Let's kill him now. Okay? Why? Because what can Sebastian become if he kills his brother? He'll be the new king. Assuming they get back, right? They haven't worked that part out yet. Okay? So we see this plotting, as we've already seen. Okay? Because Antonio has already taken over his brother's position. So they go back and forth. And we're going to skip a bunch. Sebastian says, 290 or so, thy case, dear friend, shall be my precedent. What you did will be my precedent. As thou gotst Milan, I'll come by Naples, draw thy sword, one stroke, and they draw. And Ariel comes in with music and song and sings to Gonzalo, wake up. Gonzalo wakes up, and notice Gonzalo wakes up and he sees Antonio and Sebastian with swords drawn. He's kind of like, wonder what was going to happen here. Okay? 2-2. We pick up with Caliban. And we're going to skip most of this. We're going to skip all of it. Because what's the whole purpose of Act 2, Scene 2? It's Caliban, Trinculo, and Stefano. Okay? Go back to the dramatis personae. Trinculo and Stefano. Where are they? Trinculo is a jester. Stefano is a butler. But the dramatis personae tells us what kind of butler. He's a drunken butler. They provide the comedic relief throughout the play. Okay? And so we see them meet Caliban, and Caliban offers to serve Stefano how? As a god. Why? What does Stefano give him? Think 1930s American cowboys and Indians films. How are Native Americans / Indians often portrayed once they discover the white man's liquor? Caliban gets drunk on liquor, and he's like, nectar of the gods, I will serve you, etc. We'll pick up, since it's 11 o'clock, we'll pick up with Act 3. We've only got 9 pages left, I think. No, take that back. Yeah, not much more. Only about 12 pages left on Tuesday. And I forgot, your regular papers are due today also, right? Yeah.
Yeah, your research paper. That's what I was
Yeah,
asking.
your research paper. Yeah, sorry, I should have. I was completely oblivious. I'll figure them out. If you haven't turned in your regular paper, your research paper, bring it to me. If it's already over there, just leave it over there.